Hello, and welcome back to the Real Deal podcast, where we talk all things real, raw, and relatable. Ever found yourself replaying a mistake in your head and thinking, I so wish I could have said something back. I so wish I could have done things differently. It happens with me all the time. Now I have gotten so much better because I consciously put an effort to not think about it. But sometimes, it's not that easy to get over things, and you do get flashbacks like this where you kind of regret some of the decisions that you made, some of the things that you said, and some of the things that you didn't say. Whenever I go into that phase where I'm replaying the old things again and again, I have to put in some effort to bring me back from that zone, because we all carry these past failures with us, but the way we relate to them determines whether we grow out of it, or we are just stuck there. So in today's episode, we are going to talk about our past failures, and also like how we can reframe this failure. And it's also very important to release the shame around this failure, because we all always keep thinking how shameful of us to behave like this, say things like this, or not say things at all. So let's talk about how we can collectively like release shame around these failures, and also how do we use this as a stepping stone and not something that is like an obstacle with our growth. So let's get started with the episode. Let's first understand what failure means to a lot of us. Failure is something when the outcome doesn't match our expectation. And examples for failure would be, like a failed job, a relationship, a project, a conversation, a hobby, or it might be anything. But it's very important to also understand, acknowledge, and accept that failure is not final. It's more of a feedback of what is it that has not worked out for you, and what is it that you have to work towards to make it work for you. Now that we have understood what failure actually means, let's talk about why is it that these past failures haunt us. So what might be the reasons? If I take something from my own personal experience, for me, what haunts me the most is the fear of repeating the same mistake. What if I end up saying the same thing? What if I end up not saying anything and not standing up for myself? There is that constant fear in my head that I might end up repeating the same thing. Even though I have understood from my failure that I shouldn't, there's, always that constant fear. The other thing that I can think about is like an internalized shame. I kind of felt that, okay, I failed in this before, and I'm just so embarrassed that I failed. I might fail again if I try. So there is a block. It just blocks me from thinking past that failure of mine, because it keeps replaying in my head. Sometimes I end up comparing myself to somebody in that same field, and I think they have everything put together. I think they're doing great. I think probably that's how it should be. And that's why I'm failing, because I'm not living that life. I used to come up with reasons and justification for why I'm not like, attempting anything because of this fear of failure. And the other thing is, I think a lot of us believe in perfectionism, and we kind of hold ourselves to impossible standards even before we start anything or understand if we'll be able to like succeed in this. We still hold on to certain limitations, and we say, until this gets perfect, I'm not going to attempt this. So these are some of the reasons that we give, but these are also some of the reasons that kind of not allow us to explore beyond our failures. So I'll just take my own story as an example. There was a period where I really wanted to launch a YouTube channel for cooking videos, because I used to love cooking. Every day I would cook something or the other, I would learn something. And for me, it was more around, let me share some of the things that I have learned. And I wanted to do it in some creative way, right? I did have a food blog where I had some, I think 200 or 240 some recipes, and I wanted to open a YouTube channel. So I did a lot of research. I learned everything. This was back in 2014, I think 2014 or 2015. And I was so excited. I managed to do whatever I can, and I did start. making, videos. And I was working part time during that phase. So I had a lot of time on hand to do a lot of things because, as you can imagine, opening a food channel, YouTube channel, is not easy because what takes you like half an hour to cook, you end up taking more than an hour or sometimes even an hour and a half to cook the same dish because you have to film a lot of things. It's a one person doing everything, right? It's not like I have a team who is doing it. So whenever I'm cooking, I have to make sure the lighting is there, the camera is set up, I am using all the nice and good looking plates, bowls, and cutleries and stuff. So it is a lot of effort. And then you have to show everything step by step. You have to explain everything step by step. It's not like you take out some spice jar, put the spices into the dish. You have to explain what it is. You have to show in a nice teaspoon how many spoons you're adding it to the recipe, or things like that. There are a lot of detailing that goes in. So I was able to do a lot of videos, and I did upload some of them. I did, start doing that. But after a point when I moved from my part-time job to a full-time job, things started becoming very difficult for me with time management, because by the time I would come home, I would be so exhausted that I wouldn't even feel like taking all the equipments, getting everything ready, getting all the good looking cutleries and all the kitchenware ready and cook. And then I thought, okay, let me just start doing batch cooking videos over the weekend. I tried that as well for a couple of weeks, but then that also takes a lot of time. Sometimes you don't want to cook. You're so exhausted the whole week. All you want to do is probably just go out. And it's not like every weekend you're free. You're always going out doing something or the other. And sometimes you just want to go out and eat. And then you don't want to come back and cook because you're already, living abroad. Everyone knows how it is. You have to do everything on your own. There's hardly any help available. So we would divide the work within ourselves, and there's so much else that's happening. So it's very not easy to contribute time. And after a point, I felt like I'm not able to keep up. And then you have to, once you have done with all those things, you have to sit and edit as well. It's not like I just have to film and give to somebody to edit. I have to sit and do the editing as well. So after a point, I kind of started giving up. And at one point, I had to like stop making videos because I just couldn't keep up. My work started getting busier, and I had multiple other things lined up because I was doing a lot of dance shows at that point, and like my family was visiting from India. So there were a lot of things happening. And then finally, I decided, okay, I don't think I can, sustain doing this. And I didn't do it. That is something that has always been on my mind, that how did I end up failing in doing something that I really like? Maybe I could have thought of something simple. Maybe I didn't have to have like that perfectionist mindset that everything has to be of the same color. The cutlery has to be of the same color, the kitchenware has to be of the same color, or those small detailing things like that. It just has to look natural so people can relate that this is how things work at home. And for me, it was important to understand it is okay to show up like that. But at that stage, this was almost 10 years ago, and I was only 25. There's no way I would have had this much maturity to think through all of this. And I kept always blaming myself for that failure. And I kept thinking, there were a lot of YouTubers who were doing food channels at that time. It was still not as saturated as it is now, but then there was a lot of potential. If I could have, strike a balance between doing my usual job and this and other things, then it would have been well. But it didn't work out. But for me at that point, it was not easy to understand that it's okay that it didn't work out. I kept blaming myself, and I always used to think, how did I end up failing? How did I disappoint myself so much? And you know how I listed out some of the things why we feel like these failures haunt us. Like if I explain them again using this example, the first one that I mentioned was, I think, fear of repeating the same mistake. So now when I sometimes replay this in my head and think of like doing something else, I this example of me not able to sustain that YouTube channel always keeps um playing in my head. And I keep thinking to myself, what if I fail again, like just like how I failed 10 years ago with my YouTube channel? I think the second thing I'll mention was that shame that comes with the failure. I was so ashamed of myself back then. And I keep thinking, okay, so I'm about to do something now. If I fail, I'm going to carry the same shame that I carried 10 years ago. And that kind of makes me think twice if I have to attempt doing this or not. And then comparison. Like previously, I would compare myself to all the other YouTubers who have already been in the industry for so long. They are doing videos so well because they have been doing that for a very long time. And when the credits roll, there are names that come on the credits. So that means they are working with a team. They're not doing everything on their own. They have somebody to help them. But I was not able to see through it. Now everything makes sense. But back then, because I was blaming myself so much for the failure and I was so ashamed of it, I couldn't see through these details. And also, like the perfectionism, as I explained before, I wanted everything to be like perfect because I had all these things going on in my mind. That is why when it didn't work, it started haunting me so much. So I have grown past it now, but this is just an example to highlight how things haunt us. I'm sure you all would have also had something or the other that makes you feel like you're stuck there. You're stuck in that failure and it doesn't allow you to grow past it. So this is a reminder that it's okay. You can definitely grow past. You can reflect on it. You can learn what didn't work, what did work, and you can apply that learning into something else that you're doing. It was a long journey for me because I had to learn this myself. But I'm just putting it out there to everybody listening that if you're going through something like that in your life right now, please know that failure is literally a feedback of what might work for you and what might not work for you. Just like how you take feedback from people close to you, take feedback from your own life experiences and adapt it. You never know what amazing things you can do next. If I was stuck in that zone, I don't think I would have ventured into anything else. Even though the fear was there in the start, I wish there was something that I could listen to, like a podcast. I could read some things. I could speak to people who probably would have helped me in a lot of different ways. But you do have a lot of resources now. There is so many things, so many people doing amazing things, sharing amazing tips and tricks. So if you're listening to this episode and if you resonate with whatever I'm saying now, then please know you're not alone. And also please know you can grow past this. Now that we have discussed about how these past failures haunt us, let's also discuss about the cost of holding on to these failures. If I use my same example, I had a lot of self doubt and hesitation to try doing it again. After a few years, I did get some thoughts that okay, maybe I can try and do it now. But somehow I was so hesitant, and again, I was only thinking, what if I fail again? And there was so much doubt around me. So I never I never attempted to do it. And that is something that held me back completely because anything big, I would be very scared to take a risk. And there is always this inner critic that kind of keeps telling you and keeps lowering your confidence because it's a habit that when you start replaying the same things again and again, you kind of feel very low in confidence. And also sometimes I feel when we hold on to these past failures, it kind of um, prevents us from enjoying the present, and I think it also prevents us from creating new opportunities for ourselves. When I decided to like work through it, I did follow a few things which I'm going to talk about, so you can as well see if this works for you. The first thing is redefining failure. We always keep telling ourselves failure means shame. But it's very important to, put that seed, put that thought in our heads that failure means feedback. The second one, extract the lesson. Ask, what did this teach me that success never could? So, if I was successful with my YouTube channel, it's a different story. But because I was not successful, because success couldn't teach me anything at that point, what is it that failure taught me? So for me, that was the lesson that I learned. It taught me, firstly, to start thinking differently, to make things simpler and not complicate it with over perfectionism. Release shame, separate your identity from the event. So instead of me thinking all the time that I was such a failure, what I should have done is to think that it's not me who failed. I didn't fail. I'm not a failure. It's just that things didn't work for me the way I wanted it because my expectations were very high. were very high from myself, and I was putting myself under a lot of pressure. And that's why it didn't work. A lot of factors come in. I didn't expect I would move from part time to a full time, but it's good that I moved from part time to full time, because even though it didn't help me with my YouTube channel, it helped me with life. There were so many things that I could do because of that job shift. So I started thinking in that way. Probably that was a time, that was the peak time where I had to probably focus on my career. And maybe that's why this didn't work out. So I kind of started releasing that shame when I understood that why should I even be ashamed? I at least attempted to do what I like. I showed the courage to attempt. There are a lot of us are not able to do it. So that made me feel better, and I started releasing the shame slowly. Reframe your story. Instead of I failed, try I was redirected. This again works wonder. It's all about your mindset, right? The more you tell your brain that you're a failure, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you're meant to be, a failure, the more the brain thinks, okay, that is what probably I am. But when you start telling your brain that you didn't fail, you were only redirected, then you start looking at other things that worked out because this didn't work out. So I understood that if this had to work, then probably I wouldn't have gotten my full-time job. I felt so grateful that it's okay, I failed, but also I got a full-time job. That means I could do a lot more things. My affordability to do a lot more things increased. I was redirected in a different path. If I had like gone through this kind of mindset shift at that point, it might have helped me like in a better way. But as I said, I was young. But now that I've understood, and now that I have reframed my mindset, things like this just help me even more, and it gives me more happiness to share this with others as well. So I'm glad it didn't work out. Now I have an example to use from my life to tell people what I learned and what is it that they could learn as well from their failure. That's the redirection that I got. Take new action, use what you learned to make your next step stronger. So now that I know like what might not work, I will use it as an example to make sure I simplify things so the next thing works. So these are some of the tips that I have, or the steps that I took to ensure my past failures don't define me and I'm not stuck in that zone. Before we close this episode, I really want to kind of tell everyone that your past failures don't define you. Please remember that. Every stumble has something to teach us if we think that it is a part of the process. Let's also all remember that there are so many successful people in this world. They are successful not because they didn't fail. They're successful because they didn't let that failure stop them from doing what they have to do. They failed, they got up, they did it again. They failed, they got up, they did it again. Try, try, try till you succeed. It truly works. With my own life, it has worked. With all the failures that I've gone through, it has worked for me. And I'm sure it's going to work with each and every one of you who's listening today. If today's episode resonated with you or you felt related, I would really appreciate if you could share this episode with somebody in your life who you think will definitely make use of it. I would also really appreciate if you could give me your feedback about the episode, about the show. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know in the comments what is it that you think I can do better. Also, don't forget to download the one pager prompt attached to the show notes, because that is something that will help you get through this mindset of being stuck with your past failures. Also, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Spotify, and give me those 5 stars if you think I really deserve it. And also, please leave your reviews. I would really appreciate it. It makes me understand the path that I'm taking, whether it is working or not, and it also gives me enough feedback to work on whatever I want to work next. So on that note, I let you go. But thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you have a lovely week. See you again.